Imagine you want to invite a huge group of friends to a gathering. Today, you'd probably just send a group text or an email. Just think, what if you had to do it using only paper letters, stamps, and rotary phones? Back in 1963, a group of organizers faced this exact challenge on a scale that's hard to imagine. They wanted to plan a nationwide civil rights march, asking citizens from across the United States to travel hundreds or even thousands of miles to Washington, D.C. The stakes were incredibly high. At the time, African Americans were legally barred from things many people took for granted, like eating in certain restaurants, going to the movies, or even voting. To make the president and lawmakers truly listen, they needed to build a physical human megaphone. And to do that, they needed tens of thousands of people to show up in person at the exact same time. The vision for this massive gathering came from a longtime leader of the civil rights movement, A. Philip Randolph. To turn this vision into a reality, Randolph hired Bayard Rustin, who is known as a master of organizing complex events. Working out of a small office in Harlem, New York, Rustin and his team started making calls. They had no computers or spreadsheets, just telephones, notebooks, and a lot of lists. They had to figure out how to transport people from every corner of the country. That meant coordinating hundreds of interstate buses and charting massive passenger trains to all arrive on a single morning. And once everyone got there, the team had to keep them safe and fed. They mapped out first aid stations and prepared thousands of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to hand out to the crowds. This wasn't a group that just happened to meet up. Every bus ticket and every sandwich was a deliberate choice to make sure this massive crowd could be heard. Parents, let's take a quick pause here so you can discuss this with your kids. On the morning of August 28, 1963, as the sun came up, the National Mall was nearly empty. The organizers stood there, waiting to see if their work would actually bring people to the city. Then the vehicles started rolling in. Buses and trains poured into the city, carrying citizens from every single state in the Union. This chart shows how the day exceeded all expectations. The organizers had aimed for a solid showing of 100,000 people, but as the morning went on, over 250,000 people arrived. Seeing that many people arrive in order and on time showed the government that this was a serious, highly organized movement. The sheer scale of the crowd meant lawmakers had to address their demands. Looking out from the speaker's podium, the crowd stretched toward the horizon, filling the space from the Lincoln Memorial to the Washington Monument. It was a very diverse group. Black and white Americans, young students, and elderly grandparents all stood shoulder to shoulder. Despite holding over 250,000 people, the gathering remained peaceful. The air was filled with singing and the lifting of hand-painted signs. At the time, the public was used to seeing civil rights protests on the news that ended in conflict. By keeping the day peaceful, the organizers ensured the focus stayed entirely on their message. They proved that 250,000 people could stand together and demand change without violence. Parents, let's take a quick pause here so you can discuss this with your kids. The day reached its emotional peak when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. took the podium to deliver his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. The impact of that speech relied on a brand new technology. For the first time, networks used communication satellites to broadcast a protest live as it happened. Because of television cameras like this one, the protest appeared on screens exactly as it was happening. People sitting in their living rooms could see the peaceful truth for themselves. The combination of a massive, peaceful crowd and live television made the event impossible to ignore. It changed how the entire country talked about civil rights. The presence of 250,000 people in the heart of Washington placed direct, visible pressure on the president and the United States Congress. This pressure led to real changes in American law. The demands made that day helped lead to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. We often remember the beautiful speeches from that day, but those words reached the world because organizers did the hard work of getting 250,000 people into one place. Without a single smartphone, they built a message so big that the country had to change. Parents, let's take a quick pause here so you can discuss this with your kids.